Tonight, we are pulling back the curtain on something that happened so quietly, so gradually, that most people did not even notice until it was already over. The American housewife, that aproned, casserole-wielding, cheerfully exhausted figure who supposedly ran the home, raised the children, kept her lipstick fresh, and never once complained. She vanished, not overnight, not in a single dramatic moment, just gone, replaced by something messier, more complicated, and honestly, a lot more interesting. Picture the American kitchen circa 1953. The smell of Jell-O mold in the fridge, the sound of a vacuum humming over wall-to-wall carpet, a woman in heels at 2 in the afternoon, not going anywhere in particular, just existing in the correct costume for the role she was born into. Have you ever wondered what a housewife actually did all day? Was it really that bad? Or is that just what people say now? Did she secretly love it? Secretly hate it? Was she bored out of her mind? Or genuinely fulfilled? Or both at the same time in ways that do not make sense until you really think about it? The truth is, the 1950s housewife was not a universal fact of American life. She was a marketing campaign. She was the post-war dream sold to a country desperate for normalcy after 15 years of depression and war. Returning soldiers needed jobs. Women who had kept the factories running were asked, politely but firmly, to step aside, and the culture gave them a beautiful cage to step into. Suburban houses, modern appliances, a husband with a pension. The deal was this: stay home, raise children, keep house, and in exchange, you will be safe, provided for, and respected. For a lot of women, especially white women with middle-class options, that deal looked pretty good, especially compared to what their mothers had survived. But the cage had bars you could not always see. The housewife of the 1950s was isolated in ways that are hard to imagine now. She lived in a suburb, often miles from her own family. Her husband commuted to the city and came home tired. Her children were small and demanding. Her neighbors were polite, but not necessarily close. She had no internet, no group chat, no community of women sharing the same frustrations. She had magazines, Good Housekeeping, Ladies' Home Journal, Woman's Day. They told her how to fold a fitted sheet, how to host a bridge luncheon, how to keep her husband interested, and never once hinted that she might want something more. And so, by 1960, women were showing up in doctors' offices with vague symptoms: fatigue, emptiness, a kind of low-grade despair. They had everything they would be told to want, and they were miserable. Doctors prescribed tranquilizers. Valium, launched in 1963, became one of the most prescribed drugs in American history. It was nicknamed Mother's Little Helper for a reason. In 1963, a writer named Betty Friedan gave the problem a name: She called it the problem that has no name. Her book, The Feminine Mystique, cracked the facade. Women read it in secret, passed it to friends, and slowly began to admit out loud what they had been feeling in private. That the dream was real, but it was also a trap. The second wave of feminism rose out of that silence. Women asked for more access to careers, more control over their own bodies, more say in their marriages and finances and futures. The birth control pill, approved in 1960, gave them something unprecedented: control over timing. The ability to plan a life that was not defined entirely by motherhood. By the late 1960s and early 1970s, the women's movement was loud, visible, and impossible to ignore. Protests, magazines, consciousness raising groups in living rooms across the country. The housewife as a cultural ideal began to wobble, and then the economy finished the job. The 1970s brought inflation, oil shocks, and stagnant wages. The single in a household, the one that had sustained the housewife model, became economically impossible for most families. Two incomes were not a choice anymore. They were a survival strategy. The housewife did not just walk out the front door because she read Betty Friedan. She walked out because the mortgage needed paying, because healthcare costs were rising, because college tuition was beginning its long climb into the stratosphere. By 1980, the percentage of married women in the workforce had crossed 50% and kept climbing. But here is the thing nobody warned her about. When she went to work, the housework did not go anywhere. Sociologists call it the second shift. The woman who works 8 hours at the office and then comes home to another 6 hours of cooking, cleaning, child care, and emotional labor. Studies in the late 1980s showed that even in households where both partners worked full-time, women were still doing the vast majority of domestic work. The housewife role did not disappear. It just got stacked on top of a full-time job. And a new kind of guilt was born. The guilt of not being at home enough. The guilt of not being at work enough. The guilt of doing both badly. The culture kept moving. Divorce laws loosened. No-fault divorce spread across the states. The stigma around being a single mother, while never gone, began to fade. Women delayed marriage, women delayed children. Some skipped both. The birth rate dropped. The marriage rate dropped. The marriage rate dropped. The median age of first marriage climbed year after year. The figure of the housewife, once the default, became one option among many. And then, for a lot of women, not an option at all. And then the internet came, and the social media, and suddenly every choice a woman made was public, comparable, and up for judgment. Stay at home and you are wasting your potential. Work and you are neglecting your kids. Hire help and you are outsourcing motherhood. Do it all yourself and you are a martyr. There was no winning. There was only a different flavor of criticism depending on which path you took. The modern woman inherited everything the housewife used to carry, plus a career, plus a career, plus a public audience rating her performance in real time. Think about what a mother is expected to do today. She works, often full time. She supervises homework, sometimes in 3 different subjects, across 3 different children. She manages pediatrician appointments and birthday party RSVPs and screen time and emotional mail. She remembers which kid is allergic to peanuts and which one has a book report due Tuesday. She tracks the family calendar in her head. She buys the gifts. She writes the thank you notes. She notices when the detergent is low. This invisible labor has a name. Now, the mental load. And the studies show it falls disproportionately on women, even in households that consider themselves equal. So what happened to the American housewife? She did not disappear. She got redistributed. Pieces of her are still here. The cooking, the cleaning, the child care, the emotional labor, the mental load of running a household. It is just that now those tasks are spread across different people, different genders, different arrangements, and often outsourced to other women, usually women of color, usually paid less than they deserve. The apron came off, but the work never went anywhere. The figure we picture when we say housewife, the one in the 1953 kitchen with the vacuum and the jello mold, she was real, but she was also a fantasy, a moment, a specific arrangement of economics, politics, and culture that lasted maybe 20 years and then quietly dissolved. The women who came after her are not lesser. They are not failing. They are doing the same work, often more of it, with less support, less community, and less clarity about what success even looks like. The American housewife did not disappear because women gave up on the home. She disappeared because the country that needed her stopped paying for her to exist. And the women who replaced her have been doing their best to hold it all together ever since.